And we're also going to have a phone call from the Tiger King himself, Mr. Joe Exotic.
It's just totally changed. So when I hear people that are like kind of anti-zoo, I'm like, you're thinking of the zoo of yesterday. That is not the zoo of today. So, and I'm gonna tell you guys, this is the first. I'm breaking the secret.
Your phone farted.
And with that said, welcome back to Too Hard Too Fast, the podcast with strong opinions about things that we may or may not know too much about in order to broaden perspectives. Actually, today, Thursday, we're continuing to learn a lot about what we don't. We have a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
But
very little knowledge.
Mr. Tim Morrow is really educating us. And I had no idea that by getting drunk with Freetail Conserveza, you're actually helping out a species. And also, every time you go to the San Antonio Zoo, you're helping them reach out and help out a whole bunch of different animals.
Yeah, but when I go to
Tim Morrow says it better than I just did.
But when I go to the San Antonio Zoo drunk, all of a sudden it's a problem.
Is it? I don't know. I don't think we're getting kicked out of the San Antonio Zoo anytime soon.
Okay, fair enough.
I hope not.
I don't know.
Hey, it's a good show. Sit back, buckle up. Let's go. Too hard, too fast.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome to Too Hard, Too Fast.
Too hard, too fast.
Too hard, too fast.
Too hard, too fast.
Welcome to Too Hard, Too Fast.
Welcome back to Too Hard, Too Fast. If you don't know, that's your own fault.
Woo, that's your own fault, baby.
The podcast of the century.
Right. So I've heard, I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that elephants have like an affinity to humans, like they almost consider us cute. Is there any truth to that? Have you heard that yourself?
Elephants have personalities, right? So we all agree, I think, no matter your view on elephants, zoos, not zoos, animal rights, not, elephants have personalities. They are herd mentality. We have an elephant here named Lucky that's been here for 60 years. Mm-hmm. She is more bonded to people than she is to elephants because she's been with a bunch of elephants over the last 58 years, not bonded with, but she's bonded with the keepers. So they do bond with people. So it's interesting when people that are anti elephants and zoos say like, oh, they're social creatures, they have social needs. They definitely want to be with other elephants. And I say, yeah, they're social creatures. They have social needs. And the individual we have wants to be with people more than elephants, that there's this kind of diversion of like thought on that process. But I'm like, I agree. They have social needs. They're just different. So some elephants bond with people. Some are bonded with their herds of elephants. It just depends really on how they've been raised and where they've been raised and things like that. But very different. But elephants are in a bad situation. We talk about Freetail. So last year, Freetail gave $10,000 to the International Elephant Foundation. There's less than 30,000 Asian elephants left on this planet. You think about that in terms of a Spurs game, that's less than 1.5 Spurs game of people. That's all the Asian elephants left on this planet. And African elephants are in bad shape too. There's more of them, but there's 96 of them being killed a day. So 96 African elephants are killed each day, one every 15 minutes, because of human encroachment and poaching and those kind of things. So it's really important for us to understand these species and save them. And that's what zoos work towards. But you lose elephants in an ecosystem, they're an umbrella species. So they are like the ones that knock down trees and then plant seeds and those kind of things. They really represent the whole ecosystem of that area. If you lose them, the whole ecosystem crashes. So it's really important for us to really protect elephants but understand elephant needs. And I think zoos done a much better job of that in the last 20, 30 years than they did 30 years ago. The zoo of yesterday was like menagerie style, right? So who's the best zoo? Oh, who has the most? The answer was who has the most animals. And we were top 3, right? Because we have the menagerie exhibitry of like one animal. Now zoos are judged by who has the best exhibits, most natural, most enriching, who's doing the most education, who's doing the most conservation. It's just totally changed. So when I hear people that are like kind of anti-zoo, I'm like, you're thinking of the zoo of yesterday. That is not the zoo of today. So it's really important for us to get our messaging out that literally zoos today are fighting to save species from extinction. They're not the zoo of yesterday where it was just a menagerie of like, go down the assembly line and meet every animal, which before the internet and all those things, that's what you did. But so it's an interesting time, I think, for zoos and for conservation efforts where we're kind of in this medium period of like, okay, there's only 35,000 Asian elephants left. Zoos are really important to save them, but should we have them and those kind of things? But we're educating the public on what's happening in the wild and, you know, how even in San Antonio, here's how you can help save these species in the wild by doing these things. And so that's what we really focus on.
Yeah, and as you said that zoos are changing. I was talking to Gerry before you got on. When I first moved to San Antonio, I felt like people, and mostly, I mean, I wouldn't know about tourists, but for sure the locals were like, you don't want to go to the zoo. There's nothing to see there. The animals are not even in their thing. You don't. So the thing was like, you don't want to go to the zoo.
Yeah.
But as you know, I grew up with the city. There's been a big shift, and I guess a lot of it is when you came in, and there was another article that I read that you came in and pretty much just started changing even the color scheme. You were changing the color scheme. It was so boring. So you were taking, like you said, the more care about the where the animals are, making it look more like where they're supposed to be, like if they were out in wildlife.
Yeah.
So at some point there was a shift where people actually were like, hey, let's go to the zoo. You know what the zoo's doing now? There's events like Boo Bash and all these crazy things that you guys are doing that are super fun because I go myself.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with this shift? Was it just like for you to say, hey, I need to make this more fun? Or did you just realize yourself that people weren't coming, or what was driving you making those decisions?
Yeah, it's multiple things. So I realized, you know, zoos have to modernize and understand how people now want to see animals in the caravan, right? So they don't want to see, backwards 50 years, there was one gorilla in a concrete habitat that you could see a gorilla. Okay, check that off the box. I saw a gorilla. To the zoo, okay, the gorilla was out. We had a concrete exhibit, which was easy to clean, and the gorilla was always visible. So as we're designing habitats now, it's like, I don't care if someone's complaining they couldn't see the lions because the grass was too tall, or the gorilla was this, or this. I'm like, we're creating natural habitats that are enriching to those animals, and they really become ambassadors for their counterparts in the wild. And so that has been inspiring to me. One. Two is like, you talked about the experience at the zoo. We've really been adding a lot of events to the zoo. You know, we have dinosaur this summer. We have Zoo Boo for 6 weeks, Zoo Life for 6 weeks. We don't want the zoo to be the same static thing you visit all the time, because when you visit a zoo, accredited zoo like San Antonio Zoo, you're really funding conservation around the world. So the more people we can get to come to San Antonio Zoo, the more conservation work we get to do around the planet. So it's a total win-win for us, right? The more people that come. So the more events we do, the more things we do, and people come, the more they feel better about the habitats they're looking at, like you're mentioning, where you just come to the zoo and it's kind of sad. It was the same thing every time you came. We're changing that. We want people to stay at a habitat and learn about it. They're like, okay, I picture like, this is where rhinos would live. This is where elephants would live. This is where gorillas would live. And spend time learning about those species and those species statuses in the wild, to encourage the conservation efforts they can do at home. But so it's really an encompassing program of like, we have this experience for the person that comes to the zoo. We want them to stay longer. We know people come to the zoo to have fun, right? So we don't want to lose that. Jack Hanna is famous for saying, zoos are fun. Don't lose the fact that people come to zoos for fun. I have never lost that. So I think the zoo is fun. Our social media is fun. Everything we do is fun for our employees. But we want you to come and have fun and stay longer to learn about all the animals in our care to help the conservation of those species in the wild. And so that's what we're doing, is like just creating a better guest experience. When I got here, every single building was brown. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, the old school philosophy of zoos was, you know, whoever had the most animal was the best zoo. And the buildings were brown. They blended in the background. It was all about the animals. And I came from a theme park world where we're all about experience for the guests. So we've kind of blended that here at this zoo. And a lot of zoos around the country have started to do this, but we're really fortunate here that I have people here working at the zoo that come from Six Flags, SeaWorld, museums, ski resorts, car companies. We have this really great mix of people that didn't traditionally grow up as zoo operators, and we have the traditional zoo operators with the animals, and it's a great blend of like, we're kind of the new zoo. We're out there. Like, we do things like our Valentine's Day program is like, you can name a roach or a rat after an X, and we're going to feed it to an animal on Facebook Live for you. So
Heard about that. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
that program,
How many roaches did you name of me, Jerry?
Can we cut? No, it's a real Roadhouse story though, man. He's like the zoo cooler. You've seen Roadhouse. Comes in and just kind of cleans up. Yeah.
so we're kind of out there as far as zoos are concerned, which I don't mind because we're a disruptor. I consider ourselves a disruptor in the industry. We're doing things to get attention, to bring attention to the problems of the animals in the wild, which is fine. But that Valentine's Day, we've raised $100,000 in 2 years. And by the way, 85% of the people that bought roaches and rats were women. So
It's the guys. The guys are the ones messing up.
So there's a lot of dudes doing bad stuff to get named as roaches and snakes. But yeah, 85% have been women naming the roaches and snakes, or roaches and rats. But we're just having fun. We're trying to bring fun. It's like the beer. We're trying to bring fun to conservation, because if we know people want to come here to have fun, when they come here to have fun, we're going to educate them. We're going to do things to teach them. But at the core, we are fun. And our social media is epically fun, super funny. And that's kind of our personality. Like, and there's dudes around the country that are like, I'm sure like those guys are crazy in San Antonio. Like, we would never do that, but we don't care. We're having fun. It's having the impact on the on species that we're trying to save, and I don't know, San Antonio. So we're just fine with that. We don't care what others just think about us.
It's like the advantage of not being under a microscope. We're not New York. We're not like the San Diego. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, we can do whatever we want. And I think that's the cool thing, is that San Antonio has had so much untapped potential that now we're like, you're right, man. The zoo, when I first went to it, it was like, there was nothing to get excited about. And it's just so engaging now. I think it's really cool. Like, I even had a year-long pass last year. Like, I took a leap. I'm sorry, man. I don't know. We'll talk about it later. But
So we have an event called Zulala. It's a food and wine event. 50 restaurants, wine, beer, all-inclusive event. We buy a ticket. Proceeds go to conservation. We've had it for 35 years. And I have friends.
This is the first time I've heard of it.
That's what I keep hearing. So I keep hearing, like, how has this been happening? I'm like, 35 years. I'm like, but this is a great event. Like, last year we had 5 stages. Mathematics played. 2 years ago we had O-Town and Aaron Carter from the 90s bands playing. So we just have to do a better job at our zoo of saying,
you know what? I'm lying. I think I had some coworkers go.
Yeah.
But I thought it was like a VIP thing.
Oh, you can buy VIP.
Got to go. Oh, because I thought it was only like certain people got to go, and I was like, I guess I'm not one of those people.
We have next year. I got you. But we have VIP areas for Zulala, and it was fun this year because Fiesta had been canceled for a year. We did it in May. It was the first day in a month that didn't rain, and the same day the CDC had dropped the mask requirements. El Rey Feo showed up. Like, it was like Fiesta. You could palpably feel the joy in the air of people at Zulala, and it all goes to a great cause, just like Fiesta does. So it was really fun. But you guys will come next year for sure and we'll do a podcast live from Zulala next year. Yeah.
Dude, let's do it. That'd be cool.
I'm in.
That would be cool. And I know it was fun because my coworkers showed up the next day to work like this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. See, here's where they messed up. I take the next day off. I know better, so I take the next day.
I was wondering, it's like, I think the next day was a Friday. Did you guys have it on a Thursday?
Yes.
Okay. And the next day was a Friday, and they were just like, we're just going to come in. And they regret it coming.
I promise you, next year, they're like, we need to take off on Friday because Zulala like rocks our world. Yeah. It's a really fun event. And to do stuff, anything with the zoo is like benefiting like wildlife and things. So it's like a win-win-win all the way around. It's just fun. And we want to be more than just like, we hear all the time, like, I haven't been to the zoo since I had little kids. We want to have adult events. We have a Zoomers group, which is our young professionals adult group. So we do a lot of casino nights and Zulala and all these fun events. We want to connect with the entire community because every single penny we make goes back into operating the zoo or conservation, which is really fun for us.
And they got boomer groups too.
Oh,
There's no boomers here. No boomers. I got a boomer on Facebook this week. I'm like, I'm not a boomer.
Well, speaking of making happy regrets, I think it's time for another one.
Yes.
I agree.
Oh, thank you. By the way, do we get breaks?
No breaks. Oh,
No.
wait, you need to go.
If you don't mind.
You know, there's no way you can get out of it.
I know. Do I have to crawl under the table?
We can pause, dude.
If you're fine, yeah.
that's
Okay.
fine.
It's his first day. We understand. Go ahead.
When I was reading about how you're changing things up,
Yeah.
I was wondering, like, how is he making sure that the education is still happening? Because, as you said, now zoos are more focusing on making sure that we educate the guests so that you guys can also rehabilitate the animals or also make sure that more animals are not being hurt out in the wild.
Yeah.
So where is that balance between making it educational, making it fun, but also not becoming a Tiger King kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we know people come here to have fun. Our employees come to work here to have fun. Our guests come visit to have fun. And we want to make great exhibits and a great experience so the guests have fun and stay longer, right? So you look at what we've done at this zoo, our pillars are really conservation and education. And we operate an education department that has like programming for kids age 6 months to adults 89, 99, 100 years old, cradle to crane. We have programming for those guys at the zoo. And then we operate the Will Smith Zoo School, which is the largest nature-based preschool in the country. So we have a school on the perimeter of the zoo where 240 something kids go to school every day, spend 50% of the day outside learning in nature. They come to the zoo every single day, and they're learning to be our future conservationists. So like we spent the biggest project this zoo has ever done has been that school. So when zoos talk about like, oh, we're centers of conservation and education, this zoo can stand proudly and say the biggest thing we have ever invested in is a school, not a habitat, not this and that. So we're super proud of what's happening at that school. Those kids are like the next generation of conservationists. It's really funny because we built the new zoo parking garage, which is really beautiful. You can see it on 21 with butterflies and giraffes and tiger. We were building that garage a couple of years ago. It's right next to the Will Smith Zoo School. Well, we had to strip the land, right, to build the garage. And that part of our property was all like scrub trees, no native trees at all. But the kids at Zoo School were like, wow, there's deforestation happening right next door to our school. These are 3, 4, and 5-year-old children telling us that there's deforestation issues happening next to their school. So we literally had to go talk to those children. Nobody in the public said anything. Driving up to 81, nobody that lives around here said anything. The 3, 4, and 5-year-olds at the Will Smith Zoo School were worried that there's deforestation happening at the school. So we had to go talk to them. Like, those were not native trees. We're going to build this garage. We're bringing back in 100 native trees, like oak trees and all these things that live here. And but I think that just speaks to like our focus on conservation and education. That these little 3, 4, and 5-year-olds are conservationists already at that age. The fact that a 3-year-old is using the word deforestation is impactful. My daughter went there and she's like, turn the water off when you brush your teeth. No, I'm not taking that to school because that's single-use plastic. That Oreo cookie is in single-use plastic and those kind of things. So like we're having an impact here with Zoo School. 240 something kids go to school there every year. The waiting list gets up over 800 kids a semester to go there. So there's a big impact of those kids. You know, you multiply that, they go to their families, to their neighborhoods, that impacts everybody. And then the kids waiting to get into that school. It's a big impact for us and we're really proud of it. And we want to grow it. Part of our programming there is like, let's train a trainer to go to schools across Texas and teach this programming to these kids so they understand nature, connect with nature, and protect nature going forward. So it's really fun. So that's one of the things I love about the zoo is like everything we do is it comes back to these great core mission statements and mission purposes. Every single thing, every dollar, every minute we spend goes right back to it.
And are you guys the first zoo to do something like this, like build a school?
So there's zoos that have schools. When we start, this zoo school started 20 years ago. It was in our education department building. we never talked about it because it was always full. One classroom with 20 kids, always full. We bought the school campus we're on now in 2015, opened it in 2018, and it's just been out of control since then. But it is something that we're really proud of and part of. But people really want to get their kids in there. It's like when we grew up, our parents said, when the street lights turn on, you come home. When you go play in the creek, play in the pond, play in the field, like kids have lost that now. They spend less than 7 minutes a day outside with unstructured play. Like that's a big impact on society and nature and conservation. And we're trying to reverse that. So our kids are like in the dirt, in the mud. They come home muddy, tired, rocks in their pockets, mulch in their hair. And we're just really excited about, we're creating these future conservationists that are going to spread that message for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And it's not just that kid, it's everyone they touch is going to be impacted by that, which is really exciting for us.
When I think of the zoo and I think of, SeaWorld too, anything that has to do with animals, I'm a big fan of watching nature shows.
Sure.
But, because I like to be educated, but what pisses me, I don't know why. I just cussed a whole bunch and I'm going to censor pisses.
Hey, listen, I do interviews all the time, right? And they're like, and even the email you sent me, if they want to edit it out, I'm like, I tell people all the time, you can ask me anything you want, and I will tell you the same thing I'll say in public, online, on air, live, whatever. I'm going to tell you the same thing. So you say whatever you want, and I'll say I will tell you the same thing now that I would tell you offline anywhere else we're going to do it. So say it, just say it.
What pisses me off is that for some reason humans cannot understand, and I get that we're hurting the place that we're living.
Yeah.
The animals that live here, they were probably here before us, or they knew what they were doing before we know what we're doing, because we're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
I just don't understand, just stop hurting the animals, stop hurting the world that we're living in. And I get a lot of it is because, different money, pretty much. I think a lot of it comes with money.
For sure.
Like you're saying, the elephants, they get hunted for their tusks.
Yeah.
And because in turn, that's valuable to somebody. So I cannot talk for people that live in certain situations where they feel like they need to do this. But I think with education, as I was saying off air, I am a teacher, and I feel like education is the key to being able to stop hurting, kind of thing, or stop hurting the world we're living in. Do you see a change anytime soon? I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
Yeah, the scary part is it's happening so fast, right? Humans are just taking up the planet and taking land so fast. But I think zoos and other nonprofits realize conservation is not like going to a part of the country, part of the world and saying like, we're going to save the elephants because we're going to guard them and protect them. It's like you have to have community engagement, education with that community, with the kids of that community, the parents of that community, to say there's value to these elephants, and this is why they're valuable to your culture and to your ecosystem, and this is what happens if they disappear. So I think zoos have done a much better job of learning that in the last few years. We do a big conservation project and work in Amazon and Peru, and what we do is we're supporting indigenous groups that live in Peru. So these indigenous groups have these ranges of rainforest. We can't just go in there and be like, hey, just don't let somebody mess with the rainforest. That doesn't work for them.
Right.
Because what happens, they don't deal with cash. They don't deal with we can't project what we know on other cultures, right? That's the challenge. We project what we know on other cultures. It doesn't work. So,
and they also have their own worries.
Yes.
Their own survival.
Like these cultures in Peru that we work with, they don't deal with cash. They don't deal with contracts. And what happens is they get sick. They'll have an illness, like imagine COVID happens. Somebody will come in and say, we'll give you vaccines if you sign this contract to let us mine and log your land, right? And so we're like, no, don't ever sign those contracts. We will be here to support you. We will financially support you. You'll be okay. We're going to make you okay all the time. Just protect your land. And so that's the kind of things that zoos are doing now. And if you take all the accredited zoos in the country, and AZA, which is the big accrediting organization, there's probably 230 plus US and outside the US. We're like 200 million plus a year into conservation programs like that are saving the planet and wild places, because it is saving wild places. Wild places are disappearing. So you have to work with those local communities to save those wild places. You can't just go in and be like, okay, I'm gonna put a big fence here now and there's elephants can roam here. That's not how it works. You have to work with local communities and local governments. I mean, it's complicated, but zoos, accredited zoos, are working hard to do that around the world, which is pretty incredible.
I think the weird thing about rules, laws, prohibition is that it kind of makes people idolize what they're not supposed to do. So I wonder if taking a different approach at education, like, hey, this is how not doing these things that are killing off certain species impacts you, you know, I wonder if that might be a more fruitful approach. I don't know.
You said prohibition, and then I got instantly angry.
By the way,
you know what I mean.
Budweiser delivered the first case to the White House when prohibition ended. Anyway, with the Clydesdales. But by the way, yeah, but you have a good point. You have to work with those communities and explain and work with them to say, this is why these species are important. There's value to these species. If you look at countries that don't have value to those species, they don't care if people poach them. They don't care if people kill them. If you're, imagine you're a farmer, right? You have a family of 4, and your whole life depends on the crop you have behind your house. And an elephant comes in one night and wipes it out. What are you going to do to that elephant? You're going to kill it because he has just killed your livelihood for years. So it's a lot of it is human conflict, human expansion, having to figure out where we can work together with these species because they're really important to everything we're doing. But it's very complicated. People try to oversimplify it like, oh, just let all animals in the wild. There's no wild anymore. There's no wild. It's all man-managed properties and man-managed lands. And so it's a very complicated process to save these species, but we're dependent on them. We are totally dependent on these species living for our own good. We talked about earlier, the propagation of, bees and bats and birds. And so if that goes away, we're done. So we got to figure this out fast. And you got to ask yourself, like, why are all the billionaires trying to get off this planet, right? The billionaires are racing to get off this planet. Why? Because we're in trouble. So yeah,
it's interesting though. It's like, I think the first step to caring about something is admitting that you don't care about something.
Yeah.
It's like, don't show me what's behind the veil, like, oh, don't show me suffering because I can't face it. To me, it's kind of a weird thing, but it works.
So for us as zoos, the thing is like, hey, we're connecting people with those animals. So like here we have a giraffe feeding experience. You're eye to eye with a giraffe. We have reticulated giraffes. There's less than 4,000 of them in the wild anymore. So while you're there feeding them, we have the opportunity to talk to you about, this is the situation of these giraffes in the wild. There's less than 4,000 in the wild. And zoos are trying to save them. And you're helping by buying this, experience to feed giraffes and those kind of things. So zoos try to connect people, and that's what the goal of zoos. We're connecting people to animals on an emotional level to save them in the wild, which is not what zoos were originally set up to do. They were originally set up as like these menagerie, like, I'm going to have one of everything. You come to my zoo and I'm going to have one of everything. And now it is like, I want to connect you to these species to save them in the wild. That's what zoos are now. It's remarkable what the change has been in zoos in the last 50 years, but that's what zoos have become.
Which, by the way, since you mentioned the feeding of the giraffe, I love that thing. I love that interactive experience. I took my son, I think he was 2 at the time, and I thought he was going to freak out once the giraffe got close.
Yeah.
No, perfect. He's fine. He's looking at the giraffe. It's super close. The only time he freaked out is when we kind of like, my wife kind of held the lettuce, and the giraffe wraps its tongue around it and takes it.
Yeah.
As soon as he sees the giraffe take the lettuce, he goes from smile to ah!
You took my lettuce, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, what happened? I don't know. I think it was the fact of seeing the tongue go around.
That's the moments for us. Like, that's a moment where we have the opportunity to talk to you, right? So if we didn't have a giraffe feeding deck, you would just look at giraffes and walk on.
Yeah.
We have the opportunity when you come feed giraffes at our zoo that we can talk to you about, okay, there's only 4,000 left. Here's how you can help them. Here's what's the situation. And so we try to take advantage of all those things while you're having fun. We want you to come have fun, feed the giraffes, have these magical moments like you're having with your son or daughter. And at the same time, we're going to educate you on the plight of these guys in the wild. That's what zoos are really about now. It's totally changed in the last 30, 40, 50 years. It's been really fun. And for us, we're like, okay, we're going to be on the forefront of this. Our new Jaguar exhibit, we're taking a Jaguar through another exhibit, which has never happened before, ever in the history of zoos. Our Jaguars will go across a pathway through an Amazon aviary and then hook up to another Jaguar. No one's ever done that before. So we want to be on the forefront of animal habitat design that's enriching for the animals and creates a more natural environment for them that's enriching. San Antonio Zoo, San Antonio should be really proud. In the 1930s and 40s, we were the first zoo in the country with cageless exhibits. Everybody before us had cage, every animal was in a cage, square cage, square cage, square cage. We built moat systems here where you looked across a moat and there's a bear, the bear's out there, the lion's out there, the tiger's out there. You're just looking across a moat. We were groundbreaking in the 30s and 40s, and we want to be that again in the 2000s and going forward. So we're really excited what we're doing going forward. And Jaguar, for us, the Jaguar Walk is a really cool example of what we're doing forward. And I'm gonna tell you guys, this is the first. I'm breaking the secret.
Exclusive.
Yeah. So I'm a child of the 80s rock, 90s rock, the band Pantera. You heard of Pantera?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I
won't get as excited, but
so Pantera is Jaguar in Spanish.
Yeah.
Pantera has an epic song called Walk.
Yes.
We are naming our Jaguar system Pantera Walk.
Oh,
So we will see how many people watch this podcast and how many people don't watch this podcast that put two and two together. Pantera Walk, which is an epic Pantera song.
Yeah.
And figure it out. So we like to do a lot of those hidden cookies kind of things, but we're going to retheme that entire realm as Neotropica, which I keep telling them, let's theme it as Metallica. Like, give me the two Metallica hooks on the logo. Things like they're like, you're crossing the line there. Okay, I'm like, okay. But
no, that's incredible.
No.
Stick with the idea. That's amazing.
Rock City, they're gonna like.
Yeah.
Pantera Walk is going to be epic, and if you know who Pantera is in the song, you'll get it. If not, okay, well, still Pantera Walk. So it's really fun. Just something to my students. But that's like doing a great exhibit for an animal. 100% more space, natural behaviors, up in a tree, down by the river, and that's the kind of things we're doing. So,
well, see, when I was reading about that expansion that you guys are doing, I was trying to picture that this is going to be amazing. It's going to be super freaking cool to see that, and it reminded me of the Cincinnati aquarium where they have like sharks swimming over you. So I was like, oh man, if that looked cool, this Pantera Walk exclusive to our
you guys, this is breaking news.
Right. This actually is breaking news. Yeah.
No, we have told nobody that it's called Pantera Walk. So this is the groundbreaking moment of press release Pantera Walk.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm pumped, man.
Yeah,
I'm a big Pantera fan.
Why not? I'm like, who gets to do this stuff? We work on designing like animal habitats. Like we just recently did rhino. It was literally a napkin in the airport in Dallas. I'm like, who gets to do this stuff? This is super fun. So let's have some fun. But we want to be groundbreakers once again on zoo design and not your traditional zoo exhibits. And let's be creative for the animals and create great spaces for the animals and the guests at the same time. And that's what we're doing.
Well, speaking of the Cincinnati Zoo or aquarium, since I brought it up. So what's this deal with Timothy and Fiona having a little romance?
He's in love with Fiona. So we have he's now 5-year-old, 6-year-old hippo named Timothy. And there's a 5-year-old hippo in a Cincinnati Zoo named Fiona. She was born premature, 6 months premature, super cute, had a massive following around the world because she was born so premature, like the size of a football, tiny. And we brought Timothy back. So we had a San Antonio Zoo, a hippo pair named Uma and Tumbo. They had 8 babies. At some point, so the AZA, our association, we try to have, it's called the Species Survival Plan. We want 100 years of good genetics in all of our species so we can maintain good genetics. Uma and Tumbo had like 8 babies. At some point they said, like, no more babies. We have enough of their genetics in the system. Well, Karen was their last baby. She went to Albuquerque. She fell in love with another hippo, had a baby named Timothy. Come back to San Antonio. Tumbo dies of old age. So we bring Timothy to live with Uma, the grandma. So Timothy here lives with Uma, his grandma. There's a young hippo in Cincinnati named Fiona, who like international social media phenomenon. And I love social media. So like, we really need to bring Fiona to San Antonio. So one day these, some volunteers from Cincinnati bring a book and they're like, it's signed from Fiona. Like they would be a really cute couple. So I'm like, you're right, they would be a cute couple. So I write this note on social media. Like, dear Fiona, my name is Timothy. I think you're the most beautiful hippo in the world. Like took 2 seconds to write it. I went to a meeting, it came back and made sure like 5,000 times. So it just exploded. And so ever since then, Timothy and Fiona are in love. Timothy writes love letters to her. They send each other presents, Valentine's Day presents. And it's like, what the benefit for us is we've been able to tell people like, here's how zoos use genetics to keep these species in a healthy place. So, you know, Timothy will be decided to go somewhere. Fiona will be decided to go somewhere. They may or may not be together. Of course, everybody's like, please let them be together. Of course, in Texas, we're like, yeah, send Fiona to San Antonio. Up there in Ohio, they're like, no, send Timothy to be with Fiona. But it's just been fun for us. We've done a lot of stuff for her presence. We tried to hire a mariachi band to go visit her. And there's 0 mariachi bands in Ohio. 0. So, yeah, shocker. We had to hire a mariachi band here to go play at the San Antonio Zoo to video record to send her a birthday present. But we've sent like edible arrangements. Last year, Timothy bought her a spot in Scotland that made her a queen. I mean, all these crazy things, but it's just been fun for us to talk about Timothy. Timothy's really a fun voice for San Antonio Zoo. He ran for president last year. You know, his platform was like very big because it had to hold him. He wanted naps for all, 24-hour buffets, like just super fun stuff. But it's been a good example of something that we make fun. And at the same time, we educate people. So here's how we're trying to save hippos. And here's how we move hippos within zoos. So Timothy's a perfect example of the fun we're having at zoos and becomes super famous and super fun. He writes a love letter to Fiona every Thursday at 3:00, which is super fun. People follow it like religion. If we're 5 minutes late on a post, we start getting messages on Facebook like, what's wrong with Timothy? What's wrong with Timothy? Like, writing it. I'm like, okay, well, it's kind of.
I'll tell you this. This is the segment where my sister will finally hit that like button.
Yeah.
Because she is like super crazy with Fiona. Like she loves Fiona. Yeah. And I don't know if she knew that, you know, she has a love interest here in San Antonio. Yeah. If she doesn't, this is gonna be like, this is gonna rock her world. I wish I wouldn't. I know where my son's T-shirt is. She went to Cincinnati. She brought back a Fiona T-shirt for my son.
We've had people visit Fiona, take pictures, and then come here and take pictures with Timothy because they're a couple. Like people are emotionally invested in this relationship. So he has a lot of fun with it. You know, I visited the Cincinnati Zoo last year and we just took pictures. I took a picture with her like, oh, I'm trying to figure out if we can fit her in the suitcase. But it's funny, the people in Cincinnati are like, she is not moving to Texas. Your grandma has done a good job raising you as a good Texas boy, but she is not moving to Texas. You got to move here and those kind of things. But it's just been really fun to kind of have Timothy as a spokesperson for zoos. And it was total accident. Some
would say a better love story than Twilight.
For sure.
I think most would say that. Yeah.
Most.
Twilight, The Bachelor, you name it. He's outdone all of them.
I will say though, if you follow any like Hispanic traditions, usually the male has to move with the female.
Well, that's kind of one of my fears is like, well, I know Fiona is not moving. So I'm like, they're going to take Timothy. He's going to, the SS. So what Timothy is part of is called the species survival plan. We try to have 100 years of good genetics of each of these species to keep them in the caravan where we don't have like, you don't want inbreeding and things you saw in Tiger King. You don't want that. Right. So I'm like, at some point, someone's going to call me like, send Timothy to Cincinnati. I'm like, Yeah, I really don't want him to leave. I don't want him to leave, but
Yeah.
I know Fiona is not leaving Cincinnati because that whole city will there'll be a riot. There'll be a riot. Fiona tries to leave Cincinnati.
Definitely. Well, here's the catch, though. If we're still following Hispanic traditions, then the father of the female has to pay for everything. So Cincinnati has to pay for
There
everything.
you go.
We got to figure out who that is because Karen, Timothy's mom, just had another baby with her dad. So Timothy has a little brother. So we got to figure out we need to put a little chart together and be like, who's paying for this wedding?
Yeah, exactly. Or just tell them, like, look, Timothy has grown up in a Hispanic rich environment. He loves fiesta.
He does. He does. He
So,
loves
there you go.
siesta. He loves fiesta and siesta.
There you
Fiesta.
go.
And what do you guys call them? Snore bubbles?
Yeah. He snore bowls, all the time. He knows all about the nap. He's all about the nap, which we appreciate.
So we won't keep you too long anymore. I'm having a great time. I think we still got plenty of beer to drink.
But don't forget, we have the second series of this with the black and whiskey.
The second,
Oh, yes.
for sure.
Oh, I haven't forgotten.
Yeah.
So we're definitely going to invite you right back. But before you go, we have one more question for you to share with us. Jerry, would you do the honors?
Yes. So I actually have two questions, if you're okay with that. Okay.
Yeah.
So question number one.
Look at this first timer
Hey,
running the show.
I did a little bit of homework, you know. Okay, so question number one. So the Spurs are huge in this city. I think it's safe to say, right? Pretty big, right? Well known. So with the number 12 pick in the NBA draft,
Yeah.
last night, our San Antonio Spurs selected Josh Primo.
Yep.
Okay, so what is your Primo pick for the number one attraction in the San Antonio Zoo?
That's good. That's a great question. So to give you a little background, I have worked for the San Antonio Spurs. I was on the stat crew for many years. My dad worked for the NBA for 20 years, was on that crew. So I am one of those persons like hashtag in pop I trust, right? So I remember when we drafted Tony Parker at the age of 19, people were like, who is this kid? We don't know who he is. I remember when we drafted Manu Ginobili and people were like, who is this kid? We know who he is. I'm like, so in RC and pop I trust. So with this kid, I'm like, I don't know if we're drafting him to draft him or who knows. There could be a trade tomorrow, like that he was part of a package, but super excited about that kid and what he's going to do for San Antonio. And the Spurs are a big part of what we do here at San Antonio Zoo too. It's just part of the culture and woven into everything we do too. But tell me your question again, and I will answer the question.
Okay, so what's your primo pick for the greatest attraction in the San Antonio Zoo?
San Antonio Zoo for sure. Here's why. To me, we are the attraction in town because we're so local and so much a part of the heart of San Antonio. And we really try to weave ourselves in with the culture and heart of San Antonio that that's part of the reason I came here. I could do $200 million, $300 million of projects at SeaWorld, but it was still corporate. I come to San Antonio Zoo. Everything I do makes an impact here on the entire community because everybody here loves San Antonio Zoo. Everybody in San Antonio has been to the zoo. Everybody comes to the zoo. Everyone's going to come to the zoo. And so we have a big impact here. And we want to be the cultural gathering spot for our community. And we've been here 107 years. We're going to be here 300, 400 years more. But we're just getting started. So we're super excited about our future.
Do you have a favorite or a primo animal at the zoo?
There you go.
So that's a good question. People ask me that all the time. So really my favorite animal becomes whatever we're working on. So right now we're working on Jaguar habitat. So we're going to create this overhead track system and all these cool systems for Jaguars. And if you learn about the Jaguar and study the Jaguar, there's an amazing predatory big cat that's used to live in San Antonio. Like 1,000 years ago, there was Jaguars in San Antonio. Now they're 3 hours north of the border of Mexico. There's Jaguars. They're not that far away from us.
Yeah.
You think about it. We work with the Gladys Porter Zoo and NGOs in Mexico on Jaguar conservation. 3 hours south of the border of Mexico, there's wild jaguars, and people have no idea that concept. So right now, my favorite animal is jaguar, and the things we're doing for our jaguars are really incredible. So it really depends on what we're working on, but right now, jaguar. And so I think it's cool that it's a species that used to be here not long ago, and that is just south of us in Mexico is really cool in the rainforest of Mexico. And it's just an incredible species and what they do, the way they hunt, they're up in trees. they hunt crocodiles and they pull them up in trees to eat them. Like they're just incredibly strong, predatory sniper style hunter, which is super fascinating to me. And I think it's really fun to learn about them more. So my favorite animal changes like every year. What are we working on? What's the next project? And so for San Antonio, we know we're one of the few zoos in the country that doesn't have gorillas. So breaking news again, we're going to bring gorillas back to San Antonio at some point. And that will become my favorite species at that time, because I'm just fascinated with how because we want to know as a zoo and employees, you want to know like what are the sociological needs, the psychological needs of gorillas, the family needs of gorillas. So you learn so much about whatever your project or you're working on, that becomes your passion. And that's how I've been since I got here. It was elephants, there was jaguars, so it changes all the time. But right now I'm super excited about jaguars. We know we need gorillas and great apes. That's going to come sometime to San Antonio. So we're going to do great things here. And we're super excited about these new habitats and these new things that no one else, we're going to bring things to San Antonio and no one else in the world has done. That is exciting for us. And
That's awesome.
learning more about those species is exciting for me as personally.
Well, if you need gorillas, I know where you can find one.
Yeah. By the way, I love your grizzly bear shirt. So that's a great story too. The grizzly bear shirt. Yeah.
Hey, Target. I found it at Target.
Well, you're a Bruins fan too, so that kind of plays into it.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Like a lot of zoos have grizzly bears that were orphaned. We have 2 black bears at our zoo that were orphaned from mother was killed because of whatever reason, a car wreck or I can't remember what happened, but we took the 2 orphan babies in. So zoos do a lot of that work too, but grizzlies are an important part of American culture and an important part of the American conservation efforts that are bringing those animals back. So if you study like the impact of wolves in the wild and how when you reintroduce those in the wild or take them out of the wild, like entire river systems change. The river system change how it flows. You reintroduce the wolves, it changes back. I mean, it's incredible what one species will do to the ecosystem that affects everybody, including humans. So we are the ultimate people that pay for what we're doing. So we got to really pay attention and start doing it right.
And it's so weird because we think we're up here, nothing can touch us, nothing can hurt us. We're the primal.
Right.
But really, like when you think about it, any little change of whatever you may think is significant.
That's the problem. You know, we're the apex. People ask me what animal kills more than any other animals. I'm like, humans. And so we're the apex of this planet, but we are destroying it. And ultimately that deterioration of environment and spaces for wild animals will impact us backwards to us. So we got to really pay attention to what we're doing. People, you know, the news cycle is 10 seconds now, 10 seconds. So we got to pay attention to what's happening. And that's what zoos are trying to do, is like tell people, look, this is what's happening. This is what humans are doing. This is what's happening in the wild. We need to pay attention and do better. And so hopefully that starts happening.
Yeah, stewardship.
Yeah.
It's all about stewardship. Yeah.
Yes.
And also, I want to say before that, I want to say that primo kid is going nowhere if you want stardom, because come on, San Antonio, everybody's primo. Everyone's
primo.
And you know what? HEB is already thinking of the commercials for their primo kids.
Yeah.
Okay, though, San Antonio, we are the perfect example of a conservation city because we're the largest city in the planet that depends on aquifer water. Any Western world, we depend on aquifer water. So San Antonio Zoo, we're working with blind salamanders from the aquifer, all these other species, ferns, plants from the aquifer. Like if those blink out, we're done. If the water goes away in San Antonio, we're done.
Yep.
So everything matters. So San Antonio is a good example of a city that depends on the environment, like not a lot of cities do, to protect the aquifer and the species right below our feet, where you guys are staying now, where I'm staying now.
Yeah.
We have to protect those species. That, hey, let's pay attention, do the right thing, and then we can live for another 10,000 years, whatever. But if we don't, we're done. So,
which brings it back to full circle on what we were saying at the beginning, how when something's going wrong in our city, we all chip in.
Right.
You know, every time we see that, the aquifer's low, conserve water. Everybody does, like water your grass on certain days.
Yeah.
Or don't.
You feel it.
Yeah. Everybody's chipping in on that.
We talked to our the group, the architects that are building our master plan with us. We're like, we're the only city you could probably do a cave exhibit that people will be excited about. Like, because people here understand the importance of the aquifer and the aquifer species. And you don't get that in other cities in the US or around the world. So we're super excited to tell people more about what we do behind the scenes with Edwards aquifer species and our own conservation and the things that we're doing here. Like I can't say it enough, more than just a zoo. When you visit the zoo, it's just a little bitty piece of what we do. We're doing conservation around the world. We're doing education with zoo school and the campers and people that visit all these things. It's like, for me, it's like a blessing to be here with this incredible mission of educating people and doing conservation work around the world. And every time someone buys a ticket here, they're funding that conservation and that education. So you cannot lose by coming to visit the zoo because you're funding all these incredible things to save our planet and teach the next generation of conservationists to protect our planet.
And you can drink beer.
You can drink beer.
Also help.
Save a life.
Yeah.
Save a life.
Beer save a species. Yeah.
Save a species. Okay, that was better.
Right.
Jerry, come on, you messed me up.
I'm sorry.
Jerry, ask a question.
I tend to fall short. I'm sorry. Okay, so we kind of segued into it, and then we kind of went somewhere else. But my favorite exhibit in the zoo is the bear exhibit, and I'm a black bear fan. I love black bears. I don't know why. They're like big puppy dogs, and I love them. So we live in Bear County, and so what can you barely wait for moving forward to 2022?
I'll answer that. He said it 100 times. The Pantera Walk.
Wow.
That's what I can't wait for.
And let's see
really
how many people will get it. So that will open next year. Actually, late this fall, Pantera Walk will open. We're going to re-theme and kind of roam the whole area of, we call it Neotropica. I'm totally trying to do the Metallica, hooks to it and everything, but they won't. We're just super excited. We're bringing that the next year, redoing Kronkowski Nature Spot. Like, our zoo is super dynamic. Every year, something is going to be new as far as habitats. And we're doing this incredible event lineup all year. So every time you come, the zoo will be totally different than the time you came before, which is exciting for us. But yeah, Pantera Walk, to get Panthers, Jaguars over your head is going to be super cool. Across a river, where the place where they can sit by the river is a natural behavior for them. Super cool. And over 100% increase in their space where they can roam, which is really exciting for us.
very cool.
Did that suffice, Jerry?
I think that satisfied the question. Yes, thank you.
No, we're excited. I'm excited about everything all the time, but
I'm super excited about
that tomorrow's Saturday.
Right. Yes.
Well, actually, no. When this comes out, it's gonna be Wednesday. So
Wednesday. I'm excited tomorrow's Wednesday.
Tomorrow's Wednesday. You gotta wake up for work, guys. Sorry. Jerry, let's hear this too.
Good job, Jerry. Your first show. Good job.
Hey, thanks. I
Not
appreciate
bad.
it.
Okay, let's close it out with: do you have a too hard, too fast story that you're willing to share?
My story would be like, find your passion. Like, I have been one of those people in life, like, I have loved my job the whole time. I've worked at theme parks and now the zoo, and I've loved my job every day. I've never had a day where I'm like, I don't want to go to work, because I've been able to impact people and make a difference in people's lives. But now at the zoo, I'm having even bigger impact. I'm impacting people's lives and the planet. Like, we're literally fighting to save the world every day here. So I would tell your listeners, like, you cannot go too hard, too fast to find your passion and then just drive it home. Just drive it home. And find that. Once you find that, like, your life will be totally fulfilled and you will not have a miserable day in your life. So I love what you guys do with the podcast. Super cool. And that you're from San Antonio. Super cool. Cheers. Let me get my beer. Super cool.
Cheers. Hold on, we should do it.
Skull. Oh, yeah. Let's.
I think San Antonio is such a special place for people to do things like this and grow. And I love the city, and I'm going to be here forever. I want my kids to be here forever. But like, I tell people all the time, find your passion and then just drive it home, and you'll have the most fulfilling life you could ever imagine.
I like that. And I recently saw this hashtag on TikTok that said, "Don't quit your daydream." And I really love that.
Yeah.
That was good.
I would also say, so I spoke at the San Antonio College graduation a couple years ago. Don't be a Harden in life, be a Ginobili. You think about that, like,
Oh yeah.
taking the easy road everywhere he goes, lazy on defense. I'm like, Ginobili played 100% every play, offense, defense. In life, do not be a Harden, be a Ginobili. Be my party comment.
Houston Rockets hate, but that's okay. We're in San Antonio.
Yeah.
With the San Antonio Zoo.
Yeah.
CEO.
Yeah.
I love that. That was a good Too Hard Too Fast story.
Actually, now it's a jab at New Jersey, so it's even better. So
There you go.
Oh, is he playing with?
He's playing with the Nets now. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, he's gone.
All right. Well, I will say this: as much as I talked about the Spurs, I am more of a hockey fan than I am a basketball. So,
you know, I've been watching today was handball. I had no idea. Handball.
What?
So it's really new sport to me. Handball in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
I was,
hockey, basketball, volleyball combined together. I'm like, I had no idea. I had no idea.
Little known fact: Hakeem Olajuwon, who was a center for the Houston Rockets, first started in handball.
I don't
a
know.
little known fact. I'm a little buzzed.
Yeah, me too.
I actually,
I don't even know where I am right now.
He stole a championship from us in 95, 96, so I don't want to talk about him.
Oh, okay.
Wow. So with that said, you guys have heard it here first. Pantera Walk. Gorillas coming back to San Antonio Zoo. Mr. Tim Morrow, President and CEO of the San Antonio Zoo, with us today. This is awesome. Thank you very much. And he's already said that he's going to come back for a second part.
Yeah. And the second one for the whiskey. Yeah.
Yes.
Whiskey. So thank you very much for being with us. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate this gift.
Oh man.
Freetail Conserveza.
Yes.
Cheers. Thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
I would definitely get this again.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, definitely.
But with that said, Gerry, what do you have to say?
So we actually ran out of time for the Joe Exotic phone call. We're gonna have to save that for next time.
When in the hell do you think I come in here?
Sorry, Mr. Tiger King. We're gonna have to
Next time we talk, so we can maybe I'll call him. We'll see.
Yeah.
Brr.
It was a collect call too, so I don't really want to
Yeah.
fork over the money.
No, definitely.
Yeah, it's okay.
We haven't sold any koozies yet.
Right.
Mostly because I haven't sold any.
Yeah. So next time
But Mr.
we have a
Morrow,
project.
we got 2 coming your way. If you just afterwards, we'll talk about how I can get them to you.
Yeah. Perfect.
With that said, remember, dare to be you, dare to be weird. Bye.
Love you guys.